in the Met.
Yes.
And that is what I find so tragic.
Okay.
It's inbuilt, and I don't think people are. It's the same with all politicians. You have a riot. If they had handled in America properly, there would have been no riot.
Yeah.
And I think newspapers have a part to play. The media and newspapers, they will pick on something because they are politically, because of their political bias. And if they don't have enough news, they will fan it into something like go on the front page. And I suspect distort news for their own agenda, political agenda. The same as the police stopping somebody in the street, stop and search. Makes one feel
So basically you've been
like
through,
a victim.
So you've been through the same trauma and the same feeling that the, let's just say, not just the black community, but the coloured community has felt in the UK for the last 10 years.
Doesn't make any difference.
I'm just going to ask.
Because I'm Jewish, doesn't make any difference.
Yeah.
We can feel. It makes me feel
labelled
and at risk. And that is what they're doing by stop and search. And they call it policing. I thought it lacks focus, it lacks sensitivity, and above all it shows a global lack of communication.
So that means I've been analysing, you've been using the word lack of communication quite a lot. Does that go back to the Palestinian Jewish problem? Because you kept on saying lack of communication. Is that the whole...
I think overall humanity doesn't always communicate well.
I agree.
I mean, not all husbands and wives communicate well.
I agree.
I think women communicate differently than men.
Yeah.
I agree.
they shout.
Right? They got different language. But we're happily married, thank God. But they're just like in a home there can be issues, and if they're not dealt with, analysed, and if families who have got issues don't go to marriage counselling or CAMS, Child and Adolescent Mental Health Unit, or whatever, small problems become bigger problems, and bigger problems become even bigger problems. So for example, if parents don't give their time to their children, they might pay a heavy price with drug addiction and being in the courts.
So that's what's going on back home.
And I think globally, if mankind doesn't listen and take note, the problems don't go away.
Okay, thank you. And the last thing, what I'm going to do, guys.
I just want to say,
Yes, sir.
for example, the Mavrich Chabad in America have had drug rehabilitation centres opening up.
Yeah.
So who are these people?
Yeah, I thought.
Our Hasidic group.
Okay. They have
Right.
drug facilities
So
opening.
we've got to address social issues. If we don't address social issues, some of them can be solved if we nip things in the bud and help people early on, early intervention.
Okay.
If one lets things go from bad to worse, then some problems become so entrenched that one's got even bigger problems.
Okay.
And I think that goes the same as it goes in health. If let's say somebody's, I know cases when people go to the doctor and they say, oh, they got pain. It's all in the mind. There's nothing wrong with you taking this painkiller. And what the person really has is cancer.
Oh wow.
But early detection failed, and the poor patient dies.
So overall.
So I think mistakes globally. You see a GP for how long? 2 minutes? And only listen to the first question. It very often is the thing one says when one's leaving that's the most important.
So overall, in this whole answer to what you're saying, the politics aside and whatever two religion, ethnic backgrounds between the Palestinians and the Jews, do you think it's just communication? That's the main issue.
Communication.
Yeah.
And
would you say misunderstanding?
communication is a skill.
Yeah.
And we've all got to work at it.
Okay, I agree. Yes, yeah, one. Got confused for 1 second. Yeah, that's right. I'm gonna ask this guy. Okay, I'm going to ask this guy, Jonathan, one more question.
Yes.
So basically, as you guys can see, I'm doing a documentary. As you guys can see, so basically, I'm going to ask Jonathan one more question. As you guys can see, I'm doing a documentary about the multiculturalness of London itself. I'm here in Stamford Bridge. The gentleman here has invited me over to his house.
Pleasure.
And I've asked him certain questions. So the last question that I'm going to do to ask him is if he can give me an insight about this, about the Jewish community in Stamford Hill, so the viewers here can learn more about it. And there is no difference between the Jew and the Arab. We're all as one. As you can see, the guy has invited me. I'm a Muslim person, and he's a Jewish person. You don't see this around the world. You don't see a fellow Muslim person that is also black that's going to a stranger's house with open arms. So that shows you, the lack of knowledge and the lack of and the type of humanity that this guy has here. So one more thing I'm going to ask you, if you can explain to the camera about this community, or if you can get one of your books as well in detail, just explain if what one of them is, so people can understand a bit of knowledge.
Okay.
Thank you.
Stamford Hill, there are so many charities for people who are, let's say, for example, when one gives birth, there will be food banks, meals. My neighbour she's not alive anymore, she died of cancer. But when she was alive, she worked in that. She loved cooking, so she prepared meals. If a mother would phone up and say, I've just given birth, I haven't got food for my family, she'd give her supper and say, don't worry, I'll cook again, I'll make you something. That was priority. I think it's a community that has a heart, that even though there's a lot of diversity, and even though we're political diversity and racial diversity.
How was it formed, if you don't mind me asking? Sorry to cut you off. Like how did the majority of the Jewish community moved into Stamford Hill and Stoke Newington? And Seven Sisters? The Jewish community used to be in the East End, a lot of them. Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't know why it is, but Jews move. Yeah. Why they move, don't ask me. But people move. Either the property's too expensive and then they move somewhere else where it's a bit cheaper and the children can afford it, and then the price goes up like totally insane, but the price goes up, and then people got to find new pastures, and so communities sort of
move around.
Spread around.
But the most important thing is one doesn't forget about the elderly, those with learning needs, and those who are disabled. Nobody is, as the Nazis thought, people who are disabled, they're for the gas chambers. They got no value.
That's horrible.
Every human being has value. Whether they are disabled and can't talk, they instill in one to have compassion, love, and unconditional love. That way they make this world a better place.
Okay.
We've all got value.
So that's within this community as well.
I think this community works well.
Yeah.
It integrates well, and we don't have friction.
Okay. But how was it formed? Like, how did my question was, how did the Jewish
refugees from Holocaust refugees coming to this country
Okay.
with nothing
Yes, sir.
except the skin on their back, the clothes on their back. And though my family lived in Swiss Cottage, why they moved there is my grandparents and great-grandma lived there, and we looked after them. And my dad said, we've got to be right next to her and look after them. So we looked after my granny and grandpa and great-grandma. And I learned more from my grandparents. My grandparents had a view of what I would call co-parenting. There are parents and there's co-parenting. I believe in that. I endorse it. So with my grandchildren here, I get up every morning at 8 o'clock and help them get dressed. They go to a special school. They can have meltdowns galore because they're autistic. And I have patience. I've got enough time for a meltdown or 2 meltdowns, but they'll be on time for school and they will have breakfast. So then I go, make 5. In 5 minutes I want you dressed. They get listen to me, they get dressed. Well done. Now I want you to eat your breakfast, your hot breakfast, and be outside for the coach, for the minibus, at 22. Right? So you now sit down and eat. And they listen to me and they're on time for school. Because they listen to me. I'm not the dad. But I sort of this rapport and they listen to me.
So going back to the thing, you said this community was formed from different type of Holocaust.
Holocaust. There's some difficulties when people have gone through the Holocaust.
Yeah.
Many of them don't talk about what they experienced.
Okay, but roughly.
One might actually say, in a sense, there can be some issues with post-traumatic stress disorders, and when they get older, when they become senile, they can think everybody's a bunch of Nazis and sort of relive the past. It's just pretty awful.
No, I mean, as in, like, what year did the majority of the Jewish community move into this neighbourhood, and how did it start?
They used to be in the East End, and then they moved up. I can't remember when they moved up, but it's been moving around.
Gradually.
It's not static. House prices here are high. I think, like the rest of London, they are too high.
Ridiculous.
And that makes it very difficult for anybody who's young to buy a home. And rents are not much better. They go up every year. It's just, and well, if the interest rates go up, then mortgages go up. It all depends on the interest rate. So it's not easy. It's not. With COVID-19, people not earning it much, or losing their jobs. Social problems are not going to shrink. They're going to explode.
Do you believe there'll be some social unrest due to COVID-19?
I fear it.
Okay.
I fear it. The more this goes on, and the more they just say lockdown, and this person can't work. They love control. It's a lovely feeling for them. They've got control over our lives. Wow, they just lock us all down.
Yes, it's a very tough topic. If you can,
it's pretty sick. And they'll give one say, we're giving you some money. It's like it reminds me. It's not enough to live on.
But you're surviving.
It's a survival amount.
That's right.
And I think instead of putting all their energies into finding vaccines and taking what do you call
Injections.
it? No, when people survive it, taking antibodies, though they don't last that long, but taking enough people with COVID-19 and injecting people with antibodies and doing something. They're pretty, even with their campaign of of testing, has been slow and not very coordinated. It's slow. It's all. Only those who've got. First, they said, if you've got a continuous cough and high fever, then you might have COVID-19. Then they said,
they're waffling too much.
Then they said, no. I have a friend. He said to me, he lives on his own. He's not. He has a lot of psychiatric issues because he was abused, tortured and abused. So I'm just going to share one thing. He said to me, his foot is all mauve, his toes. I said, take a photograph of it and send to me on your laptop. I looked at it. I said, I'm not a doctor, but can I ask you a question? Can you smell anything? No, I can't. Oh, can you taste anything? No, I can't. Get a COVID test now. He was COVID positive.
Wow.
So it's community responding effectively to each other with loving arms.
So that's what this community is about.
Well, that's what we've all got to do.
Yeah, that is true.
We've got our own ambulance service here. And it'll take anybody of any race, creed, colour or ethnicity.
So you have your own ambulance service?
Yes.
Wow, okay.
Now the reason for that is when one calls a 999 ambulance and somebody's having cardiac arrest or a heart attack, it can take 20 minutes to get the ambulance there. By that time they're surely dead.
Okay, wow.
Here the response team is a minute.
A minute? Where's the hospital? A minute?
They've got so many ambulances and ambulance cars. We've now got paramedics or EMTs on nearly every road.
No way.
It's flooded with EMTs. So the moment a call comes, they prioritise it as if it's a life-threatening. The ambulance will be there. We're not one ambulance. You get an ambulance cars, the whole.
In the space of a minute.
A minute or two.
What is that? Part of the NHS?
No, it's private.
Okay.
But it's funded as a charity, but they save lives galore. The other thing it does, it takes some of the weight off the NHS.
Okay.
If everybody's calling the NHS, it's a load bearing. If we shoulder some of that load bearing, it'll mean that the NHS will be able to function that bit better than everybody siphoning off a medical need of one ambulance service.
Okay, and just one more thing, if you can, if you could just show us one of your books, and if you can explain,
I'm going to.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Okay, this.
Yes, sir.
1 second.
All right.
This, and no, not that. I'm sorry, I'll just put that in there because it's about the same author wrote it. Okay, I'm going to show you. I'm going to. Okay, we'll get the Amida. Okay, I'll do. This is the prayer. That's the commentary. One little line of prayer and a load of commentary, and then you've got.
So sorry, is this the Torah scripture?
This is a book that was written in the 18th or 19th century, beginning. Oh gosh, when was it written? I think it was the beginning of the 19th century, end of the 18th, beginning of 19th. And he wrote a prayer book. So he got the prayers, but he's written a commentary, a mystical commentary on prayer. And it's deep, profound, and makes prayer sorry. Prayer is a service. Prayer is communion with the divine. And it's an experience of the soul.
Experience of the soul, that's a big word.
And everyone realizes the depth of prayer and meditative prayer, that one, instead of just rambling words one doesn't understand, like some human beings do. They pray to God. If they spoke to a human mortal king and they didn't understand a word they were saying, it's not the best level. So there's, after that is understanding what the words mean. Then commentaries on prayer to deepen one's appreciation of what one's actually saying and understand it in profound depth, so one can sit there and experience prayer and experience one's attachment to God and union of one's soul to God, and feel true emotions. Emotional prayer, not just repeating words without really much understanding.
Would you say reading these books has increased your spirituality?
I certainly, many of them cover law, Jewish law, but a lot of them are all on Jewish mysticism and Hasidism. So
in a sense,
it was. Yeah, I asked my dad as a child, how from one God do we have a multifarious creation? We don't ask those questions. I said, well, I did. He looked at me. Didn't expect that response from a teenager. So I then went to Lubavitch, to Rabbi Nachman Sadak, and asked him the question. He sat with me and started to teach me, and that's how I started going through volumes of these books, all on this subject matter of my question. It was a quest. I wanted to understand.
That's a mission.
Everybody can ask legitimate questions. There are some questions which are asked out of reverence and a thirst to understand. There are other questions which might be asked irreverently, but if it's asked because one wants to understand as much as a mortal can understand, then it's a path to growth, a path to soul finding. Just as we have to understand who we are as an individual, our strengths and our deficiencies.
Would you say there's similarities between the Torah and the Quran, or between the Bible and the Torah, or the Bible between the...
When I say Torah, the whole Torah starts off with the Bible.
Yes,
But we use the term Torah in a sense, the whole of Jewish teaching, and this is only my late rabbi's home. His rooms were lined with books. It was a house that was literally a library. And when I came over to stay with him, to visit him, he would bring me water in the morning to wash my hands I said, why are you doing that? You're my guest, my student. I wash your hands, not you wash your hands. And then we studied together, and I felt that I would say that I've learned most of what I know. I've learned from him. He's my primary guide.
So would you say there are similarities amongst the Quran?
I haven't studied the Quran. That's in all honesty, I haven't.
Okay.
But there, so I can't talk on that, right? But there are certainly some similarities between certain. Muslims are circumcised at 13.
Yes, sir. No, someone's circumcised younger than that as well.
And some say, right. Right? Ishmael, how do you pronounce it? Ishmael? Yes, was circumcised in the Bible at 13 years of age.
Yeah.
So, so there are practices which have similarities, biblical roots. Is that the right?
Yeah. There's roots that attract one another.
Everybody, it's like a tree. There are roots and branches. If a tree needs a very strong root system, and it needs branches with fruit and leaves. If it wouldn't have any leaves, there would be no photosynthesis and nothing would grow. So it needs both.
Okay.
But on the other hand, if it isn't anchored well, then any gale would topple it over. It would just smash up and fall. So the same with a human being. We have to be anchored. We've got to know who we are. We've got to be able to grow. And we've got to be able to grow with humility. And know that whatever we have achieved, anybody else given the same opportunity or more might actually achieve even more.
That's so true. Just need the inspiration to do so.
So we all got to grow as much as we can. And appreciate each other. And I really appreciate that you've given me your precious time and come into my home.
That's okay.
No, we appreciate you having us.
Thank you very much. Good experience. Thank you very much. Like for me, like the reason why I've done this, like I said, guys, before, is to show the diversity of London. And so I thought, let me just start off with a London blog in Stamford Hill, because obviously the Jewish community, I'm not here to favour anyone, I'm not here to target anyone, I'm just here to spread awareness about the diversity of the city. And the Jewish community, they do get a stick. The black community, we get a stick.
Certainly.
The Sikh community gets a stick.
Certainly. I think any ethnic community seems to be
getting a stick.
And I think that is what's so incredibly tragic.
Right, guys, it's Blackman the Traveller here, and I've finished this documentary. Jonathan, thank you very much for inviting me to your house.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you very much. That's all right.
Alaikum assalam.
Walaikum salam. Shalom.
Shalom.
So basically, guys, that's about it. This video is going to be put up next week. My plan was to ask people amongst his community certain questions, but I thought to myself, let me come over to his house. He's invited me over with the cameraman Sean and my cousin Lorenzo over here. So anyway, guys, I hope you guys are okay. Make sure you comment in this video, like. This is not here about racial discrimination. It's not about us versus them. It's about understanding other ethnic backgrounds. So anyway, guys, it's man at Blackman. Shalom in Jewish.
Yeah.
Right, thank you.
And the relationship, the word shalom or assalam is very similar.
Okay.
So it's both a Semitic language.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you.